Today is Saturday, October 22nd. The midterms are just a little more than 2 weeks away at this point, so today we are answering some of the top questions about voting and what's expected in this year's elections. We're joined by Stephanie Young, the executive director of When We All Vote. It's an organization focused on educating voters about the process and helping people get registered to vote. The group is nonpartisan, though it is worth noting it was launched by former First Lady Michelle Obama. Today, we are talking about how to make a plan to vote, what to do if you feel overwhelmed, what's expected for this year's voter turnout, and more. Welcome to the Newsworthy Special Edition Saturday, when we sit down with a different expert or celebrity every Saturday to talk about something in the news. Don't forget to tune in every Monday through Friday for our regular episodes, where we provide all the day's news in 10 minutes. I'm Erica Mandy. It's now time for today's Special Edition Saturday. Stephanie Young, thank you for coming on the Newsworthy.
Thank you so much for having me. Happy to be here.
So midterm elections historically have lower voter turnout rates compared to presidential elections. What sort of turnout are you expecting for this election this year?
We've seen voter participation go up literally since the last midterm elections in 2018. We saw it uptick then for all voters and young voters. And then obviously in 2020, we had the highest voter turnout in modern history with over 60% of Americans voting, including 50% of young people voting. So we're expecting turnout. We're expecting, us hopefully to stay at the same levels we were in 2018. And we know the energy is there to propel, I think, a strong voter turnout this November.
What do you say specifically to someone who feels like their vote doesn't really matter, especially in certain states where they feel like it won't have an impact?
Every vote matters. I think that people don't recognize and realize that the majority of our elections are at the state and local level. The president is not a king and or a queen. So they cannot make decisions that impact each and every one of us in ways that our governor can, our mayor can, our state legislature can. And what happens in Washington has to translate to your state. So the people that you elect to your state legislature, the people that will be making decisions about big bills or legislation like the Inflation Reduction Act, which is the biggest piece of climate policy legislation that we have seen in this country, your state legislature is going to make choices on how that's implemented or not in your state. Same with your governor. So these positions are so incredibly important, no matter what state you're in. They make critical decisions about the air your kids are breathing, the information that they're learning at school, about your own health care. And we are seeing that more and more as this world literally changes right before our eyes, how important our elected officials are. So we have to make sure that we're paying attention, because no matter where you are, the people that you elect will have major consequences on this entire country, and they will have major consequences on your life.
What's your advice for people who maybe feel overwhelmed by all of that? I mean, I recently received my sample ballot, and, there's a lot to go through, from statewide races and propositions to very local races like you were talking about. So when someone feels overwhelmed, or maybe feels like they aren't educated enough on every single person that they could choose, what's your advice?
It is overwhelming. There's a lot of information. Take it bite by bite. That's why making a plan to vote is so incredibly important. Then you have to take time to see what is on your ballot. You mentioned you have your sample ballot, but you can use a tool on our website through Ballot Ready to look up what is on your ballot. You can read about the people who are running for office. You can read about the ballot provisions. You can read about all of those things so that you can make a better, more smarter, and a more informed decision when you go into the ballot box. I think that sometimes we want to make voting this really quick transactional thing, and it's not. It's an investment. So it takes a little time to make sure that you know what's on your ballot, you know when and where to go vote. You can write these things down, you can take notes, but you shouldn't feel like you have to learn everything in one fell swoop, and you shouldn't feel like you have to know everything before you walk in the ballot box.
We talked about maybe people feel overwhelmed or that their vote doesn't matter. Is there anything else that tends to be a main reason people don't show up to vote?
Yeah, literally, they're just intimidated by the process, not feeling prepared or having enough information to make good decisions in the ballot box. That stops a lot of people, mostly women, from voting because, they feel like, well, you're telling me the stakes are really high, so I don't want to go in here and make a mistake and mess up. We found through our research that people just don't even know how to register. They think you have to actually go to the DMV. So dispelling, I wouldn't even say myths, but just allowing people to have more access to information by targeting them in the way in which we do to reach people who may not be reached out to by political parties or candidates. We figure out ways to reach them so that they know simple things like how to get registered, how to make a plan to vote, and then literally helping to push them out the door to go vote and vote early.
I know your organization has been helping thousands of Americans register to vote. What are they telling you? What are you hearing that is motivating people to vote right now?
Oh my gosh, there's so many issues. I mean, from reproductive justice to climate change and climate justice for young people, millennials, and Gen Z. That's actually a motivating factor to go vote. And this is the first time we've really seen that. In addition to those issues, we're talking about student loans. Also, the economy holistically overall is something that is pushing people. And issues that have consistently, I think, pushed the needle forward are issues like, police violence and criminal justice reform. And I would say for those of us who kind of swim in this world, democracy, we understand how incredibly fragile this democracy is, and understanding that, voting in this midterm election, it's going to really set the stage for what this democracy looks like, especially as we go into 2024. What we like to say at When We All Vote is that everything is on the ballot. Everything you care about, everything you have an interest in, everything that you feel responsibility over, it is all absolutely on the ballot.
Still ahead, we'll get into the reasons why making a plan before Election Day is so important. Plus, we'll talk about voting by mail. And will the public trust the results no matter which party comes out ahead? Our guest shares her thoughts. But first, a quick break to thank our sponsors. The Newsworthy is brought to you by Indeed. When you need a new hire, it often feels like you have to find them ASAP. So for top talent fast, you need Indeed. Indeed is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. Hate waiting? Indeed's U.S. data shows over 80% of Indeed employers find quality candidates whose resume on Indeed matches their job description the moment they sponsor a job. Plus, Indeed has a suite of powerful hiring tools like Indeed Instant Match, assessments, and virtual interviews. So instead of making your candidates jump through hoops, Indeed's virtual interview tool means there's nothing to download. You just click and talk. You can message, schedule, and interview top talent all in one place. Indeed knows when you're growing your own business, you have to make every dollar count. That's why when you sponsor a job, you only pay for quality applications from resumes in the database matching your job description. Visit Indeed.com/newsworthy to start hiring now. Just go to Indeed.com/newsworthy. Indeed.com/newsworthy. Terms and conditions apply. Cost per application pricing not available for everyone. Need to hire? You need Indeed. The Newsworthy is also brought to you by KiwiCo. I love spending more time with family around the holidays. I don't love having to spend time searching for the perfect gift for everyone. And yet I want to give my loved ones something special. So that's why I love KiwiCo for the kids in my life. It is totally kid approved. In fact, even before these super cool science, technology, and art projects are shipped around the world, they are tested by a crew of real kid testers to ensure each one is age appropriate and totally fun. My 1-year-old loves the toys that come in his KiwiCo crate, and I love knowing the materials are high quality and expertly built to help him learn new skills. And for my niece, who is a bit older, she gets projects that wow her, while also teaching her about cool things like how to engineer a domino machine, for example. As a parent, it can be hard to find creative ways to keep our children busy and challenged. KiwiCo makes it easy. Give awesome this holiday with KiwiCo. Get your first month free on any crate line at kiwico.com/newsworthy. That's your first month free at kiwico.com/newsworthy. kiwico.com/newsworthy. Okay, now back to my conversation with Stephanie Young. And so what are one or two of the top things that people should know that maybe they didn't realize was so simple?
I think people take for granted making a plan. You think, why would I have to make a plan to vote? I mean, it's election day, so I'll just get up and do that. But life literally happens, and anything could happen on election day. And you could be stuck at work. You could have a sick kid. There's just a multitude of different things. So making that plan and voting early helps to get it out of the way, but also ensures that you're a part of the process so that you don't have to look up and say, wow, I wish I had planned this out better.
What do you mean by make a plan?
You find your polling place because it could have changed. You make sure you know exactly where that is. You can look up the early voting times, like what time am I actually going to go vote? You can put that in your calendar like you would with anything else. You have a doctor's appointment, you have brunch with your friends, so you mark it down on your calendar so that you actually can make that appointment to go vote. And you have what you need because every state is a little different. Some states you need a government issued ID, other states you might not. And then as you're making your plan to vote, looking at your ballot, making decisions on who you want to support, what ballot initiatives you want to, support or not support, so that you're not scrambling the day before trying to figure this stuff out. All of those things go into making that plan. And then you got to get 2 or 3 other people to do it with you.
So you've talked about early voting. There's also voting by mail. Can you explain what those things are and what are some of the main questions you get about them?
Early voting is just a set number of days that your state allows you to vote early. So it could be, the week before that Monday through, Sunday, there's certain locations open in your city to go vote. That's why you have to know what those early voting days are. That's why you have to know where your polling place is if you want to go vote early. And then voting by mail, there are a number of states that do no excuse absentee ballot. And I know it's weird when you hear the word absentee ballot because you're thinking, well, I'm not going to be there. I'm going to be absent, but that's basically vote by mail. And in states like Oregon, they send every voter a ballot so they don't have to go vote at a polling place. And they have drop boxes. And when you do vote at home, it saves you time. But it's so incredibly important that you know when the deadlines are to return that ballot so that your vote is counted. The unfortunate thing is that every state is different. So that's why it's so important as you are preparing to vote to know what the rules are in your state so that you can follow them.
You touched on it earlier, but I do want to get your thoughts. Are you concerned about the public trusting the election results?
I am not concerned about the public trusting the results, I would say holistically. Any misnomers and any feelings from 2020, or any rumblings that you heard, throw those rumblings right on the trash can because they're not real. That was the most secure election that we have had in this country. And we know that every vote was counted. We know all of those things. So I think that we as a community, a voting community, we're going to be sure to help guide people through Election Day and beyond. We're going to push for every vote to be counted. But I think that we should all be prepared that everything might not be done on Election Day. And that doesn't mean anything bad is happening. That just means that we have overwhelming participation and we need to make sure that every ballot is cast and counted.
Final advice or final thought from this conversation?
Voting is that consistent and continued investment that we make in ourselves, in our communities, and in this country. And if we do not make that investment consistently, we will not have the democracy and we won't recognize this country. So I think, if I could impart anything for those of you who have been voting and who can go out and preach the voting gospel, please remind people in your life that voting is an investment. And voting one time it's not going to cure all of our issues or all of our problems. Electing a certain president won't either. It has to be bigger than that. And it has to be about making that consistent investment. And I promise you it's going to pay off when we all vote.
Well, thank you to Stephanie Young for her advice and insights about voting this year. When We All Vote has online resources available to help you out ahead of Election Day. For example, you can read up on the issues and races that will be on your individual ballot. And there's information about what to do if you experience harassment or intimidation on voting day. We have links in our episode notes. And be sure to stay tuned to the Newsworthy's regular episodes for election updates, as well as other news you need to know. Our 10-minute news roundups are available every weekday morning. So we'll be back on Monday. Until then, have a great weekend.